all these things make me realize, wow, you can really cross anything off your list as long as you believe in yourself against all odds. Because that, at the end of the day, is what's about. You have to believe in yourself against all odds.
Welcome to the Crossing It Off podcast, where each episode we share the stories of individuals that are living out their bucket/life goal lists. I am your host, Roger Williams, and through hearing our guests' adventures, my goal is that you will find encouragement and empowerment to add and cross items off of your list. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Crossing It Off podcast. I am excited that you're here today. A lot of times on our bucket list, we have dreams that we turn into goals. And our guest today has done that in his life. His name is Marques Ogden, and he describes himself as inspiring, hardworking, ambitious, and driven. And after doing some research on his story, I can tell you he dials that up to 11 every time. So, Marques, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me on, Roger. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So tell us, what is that item that you crossed off your list?
Playing in the National Football League for almost 6 years.
Jeez. I have some friends that played in the NFL, and I know personally from watching their stories that that's not an easy task. So take us back to the very beginning. Where did this dream that you had of playing come from, and how did it manifest itself over the time before you got there?
So honestly, it came about when my brother was drafted to the National Football League in 1996 by the Baltimore Ravens. And I was playing high school football. I was actually a junior in high school when this happened. And when I saw my brother, actually, I was at the draft in New York. And he was drafted number 4 overall by the Ravens. He was their first draft pick ever. And so when that happened, it made me really want to become a professional athlete. Now, I don't know if I was going to get there or not. I wasn't really sure. But of course, when you see your brother being drafted, that high, you're in New York City, you're in the limelight, surrounded by all the media and the fans and all the crazy and the hoopla, that's something that you really want to do. And that's when I decided that I had the dream of wanting to be an NFL athlete.
And so that just boggles me a little bit, having worked with young people for many, many years. You're playing football in high school. You starting?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yes.
Okay. So you're a starter in high school and you're playing football. That it doesn't come across your mind until you actually get in the mix of, life in the NFL.
Oh, yeah, because for me, it was more just what I saw on TV and all that kind of stuff. But then when my brother was drafted, and especially us being in Washington, D.C., and him being drafted by the Baltimore Ravens, which is only an hour and a half drive, or about an hour to hour, 15-minute drive, I got a chance to go to practice, with the Ravens, meet the players, see the media, meet Ted Marchibroda, who was the head coach, Kirk Ferentz, who was the line coach, now is the head coach of Iowa, be around all these phenomenal people and get to see my brother, work hard and go from being a first-year starter to then an all-pro. And then he had an amazing, 12-year career. So for me, seeing that and being in that, that atmosphere really drove for me wanting to be an NFL player.
And so then what changed? You're a junior in high school, your brother gets drafted. And so what changed in your approach to get there? Had you already been thinking or preparing to play D1 football, or was that something new for you? Okay, I've got to kick it into overdrive. I've got, what was it that happened?
I learned the game and how to be a pro. And then I got very fortunate to get one scholarship offer to Howard University. And unfortunately for me, I wasn't as big as my brother height-wise or weight-wise in high school. I grew to almost 6'6" when I left high school in my first year of college. So I wasn't as big as my brother, who was 6'9" when he was in high school. So, I was didn't have that same height, the same height dimensions. But going to practice with the Ravens, being around all the people, all the players, all the guys, all the O-linemen, I learned about professionalism. I learned about how to practice. I learned about how to play the game and how to practice 100 miles an hour. I learned about how to that football is a nasty sport between the hash marks. And if you're going to play the game at a high level, you better be as nasty as you can be, especially as an O lineman. Otherwise, you will not make it. You will not survive. And all those things gave me a lot more sense of understanding that if I'm going to do this, I need to start practicing like these guys or to start working like these guys. And very gladly, well, very fortunate for me, better way to put it, that with my brother being a Raven, I learned how to play like a Raven even when I was in high school, which got me to college. I became a 4-year starter at Howard, and then I was drafted to the National Football League in 2003.
I'm so Howard is such a for me it's like such a great achievement to have under your belt by itself. Then being able to start there for 4 years playing football is like icing on the cake to me, right? And when I look at it,
Mm-hmm.
was there any concern when you picked Howard as your school that may affect your ability to play in the NFL?
No, not really, because my dad went to Howard. My dad had an opportunity to potentially play in the National Football League in the 70s, but he blew his knee out, so it didn't happen. And I really figured, so you know what? If I'm going to have a chance to play at the next level, I want to play sooner than later. And also, being that we're from Washington, D.C., I could get home to see my father if necessary for any type of guidance or any type of information. Then, of course, with my brother, being in Baltimore, I got to go to a lot of the games, talk to a lot of the guys, see the coaches. I got a chance to know Ozzie Newsome really well. James Shaq Harris, who's actually he was one of the first African American quarterbacks in the NFL back in the 60s. He went to Grambling. And actually, Shaq drafted me when he went from the Ravens to the Jaguars. So, being around Shaq and being around the Ravens and those guys getting to know me, see my play, see my work ethic, see me develop from a freshman to a senior, it gave me a really great opportunity in that regard. So I was really excited about going to Howard because I felt as long as I did what I needed to do, I could potentially go to the next level. And if I didn't do what I needed to do, then obviously it wasn't going to work out for me. And I was okay with that.
You're striving for the goal and also in the mix, like you're being able to network and get to see the insides of the NFL that a lot of people don't get to see. Were there people that hadn't had that experience, like being naysayers to you, or like was there ever any that, and was there ever any fear in you that you may not make it?
Of course. I mean, you never know if you're going to make it because it's such a hard task and a hard mountain to climb. So you're always concerned. But I had the preface of having a great education.
Mm.
I was a finance major, finance degree. I got a degree in finance from Howard. I was a business finance major at Howard. I worked for Merrill Lynch in Washington, D.C. as an intern while I was in college. So I had other things ready to go. But, I was just focused on giving it my all. And when I went to the Hula Bowl and I played against guys from like Florida State, Texas, Rice, Notre Dame, Miami, and I was able to play and have a really good showing, a great week of practice and a great game, that's when I knew that I could play at the highest level. I didn't know where I was going to be drafted. I didn't know any of that stuff. But I knew once I went to that game and had a great showing that it was just really going to be how was my pro day going to look as far as my 40, my bench, my vertical, my position drills. But once I finished that Hula Bowl in 2003 January, I knew that I could achieve the task of playing in the NFL.
So like you say, it's not a guarantee, right? And it's definitely a difficult thing percentage wise to get yourself inside the NFL. Just numbers, sheer numbers of people that are trying to attempt this. What did it take? You have 4 years of quality education at Howard for sure. You've started 4 years. What are the steps that you go through at that point to actually make it into the NFL for a team to say, yeah, we'll take Marques?
Well, basically, you have to have great game tape. Then from there, you have to
Mm.
go to either a bowl game or or to the combine or to your pro day and show them your skill sets in the bench, the 40-yard dash, the 10-yard dash, the short shuttle, the vertical jump, your football position drills. And Once you are able to do all those things, they'll then compute also based off your academics. They have what's called the Wonderlink test. What's your IQ like, and what is it that you can do to process information? Because as an NFL athlete, you're going to get a lot of things thrown at you: schemes, schematics, plays, playbooks, and it's not easy.
I'm excited to announce the release of my new book, Live Out Your List: Finding Joy Through a Bucket List Lifestyle. The book covers the 3 stages of the lifestyle, including bucket list mindset, bucket list creation, and bucket list management. It provides tips and strategies to enhance wherever you are in your bucket list journey. To receive 10% off when you purchase the ebook, visit crossingitoffpodcast.com/book. Purchase the book today and start to live out your list. Now back to the show.
People who are in the NFL are not dummies because you have to comprehend so much information. So all those things are a major factor in where you get drafted. If you get drafted, where they feel they should be investing in you. Are you ready to come in the league and start right away? Are you a guy that's more like a project? It's going to take a year or two to develop. Are you a guy that needs to get stronger in the weight room? Are you a guy that needs to work on your footwork and they're going to invest in you and draft you, or say, you know what, we don't have a draft pick for, but we'll give you a nice little sign bonus as an undrafted free agent. So there's a lot of moving parts, but it all comes down to your ability to focus, strategize, and execute in your retrospect.
So you have these wonderful mentors, right? I hope in your dad and your brother, at least people that you have direct access to. Were there other people that were guiding you through this process, and was it difficult to balance their input versus your father and your brothers?
No, because with having my brother, as I was an O lineman, my brother was an O lineman. He was in the NFL. He was the best tackle in the NFL at that time. He's probably the best tackle in the NFL in all history. So yeah, having him and my father was all I needed. Nobody tried to give me any more guidance because they knew that those two were going to be the shining stars. My dad is being my father and my best friend, and then my brother being who he was as an NFL athlete and player. It just made sense for them to give me all the information where I could, take their guidance and not have too many people in my ear, which is going back to the old saying, you don't want to have too many chefs in the kitchen.
For sure. So take us to draft day for you. What was that like? What were you feeling? Did you know ahead of time? Oh, and I know it's probably going to be X team and X round and X number, or was there some uncertainty for you?
No, there was some uncertainty because I was drafted in the 6th round by Jacksonville, and I thought I was going to go in the 4th to possibly either Dallas or to possibly the Ravens. And then when I slipped, I remember getting a phone call from Jacksonville. I remember them telling me what was going on and what it looked like and how they were looking to bring me in as a draft pick. And then I remember once that happened, it was like, yes, I've made it. When I saw my name come across the screen on ESPN, that was huge. I had my grandmother, my grandfather, my mother, my father were all with me at my brother's house in Baltimore. And my brother was at his other house in Vegas. And it was great because I was able to now put into action what I had worked all the time for in college, in my pro day, in my all-star game. And it was great. But no, it was definitely some uncertainty because, again, you never know. Once you slip into the later rounds, it becomes a crapshoot. Like, which team needs this? Our team's going to trade out of that pick to another, and so on and so forth. So it's really about your ability to be patient and understand that, you just have to leave it up to, the thing that you did well in the season and your career and your pro day and your combine or your all-star game. And so those things really make the whole process of draft day much more, I don't want to say doable, but much more, less anxious because there's a lot of anxiety going into that time for sure.
So you've crossed that hurdle, but you still haven't reached your goal. You still haven't played in a game, right? And at some level, you got drafted in the NFL, but that's not where we started in this conversation. Take us to that first day, that first play that you were involved in. How'd you get there in your professional career, and what did that feel like? Where were you at?
Oh, that first play was great. We played the Minnesota Vikings at their home in the dome, and it was great. And I had a really, really great experience. I played against Kevin Williams, who's actually a first round draft pick from my draft class out of Oklahoma
Oh,
State,
wow.
and that was great. And this a phenomenal football player. And what happened is I realized really quickly that practice is one, speed game's another. And then I also realized that when you're playing away, it's crowd noise and everything is a major factor because those people are nuts about their team and they're
Sure.
loud and they're crazy and they're just all over the place, which is great. But I didn't realize how loud things could be in an away game. And so it taught me a lot about, discipline, taught me a lot about, preparation. It taught me a lot about, teamwork, leaning on your teammates so that you can, hear the snap count, you can adjust, you can learn how to get things done on the fly. And, you can learn how to, adjust on the fly with speed, like all these different things. So there was a lot of life lessons, but that was my first game in the NFL is the Vikings. And that was a great day, but a long day because again, like I said, it's something that I hadn't been prepped for. And I had to really learn how to make my adjustments.
At what point that day or the next day, what point did you say I did it? Right? Like I've crossed this off. Was it after that first play? Was it,
No,
halftime? Was it the game at the end of the game?
it was the next day when I got back home to Jacksonville and went to film and saw our film up on the field and I saw what we had gone through and I had and all that kind of stuff. And so that's when I was like, wow, I've crossed this off my list. I'm now a NFL player. I
Mm,
play in games. I'm gonna make the roster. I'm gonna have a chance to live my dream out. And here I am, and I beat the odds. Going to a HBCU, and I was
sure.
so excited to do it, and I was so excited to be a Howard athlete. People say, "Oh, why'd you go to Howard? You're never gonna make it." I'm like, "Yeah, well, you know what? That's what you think. That's not what I think." And so making that roster and making the game and playing and defying the odds made me even prouder to be an HBCU grad because it showed me, and I tell kids all the day, it doesn't matter where you start, it matters where you finish. The
Mm,
education I got at Howard in the football, as a matter of fact, I'm actually being inducted this year into Howard's Athletic Hall of Fame.
that's awesome.
That's gonna be in October 1st at Howard, and very excited about that because when I went to Howard, it was my only scholarship offer. And my dad was a Howard
Wow.
grad, but that's all what I got. So, to have one scholarship offer to then being drafted, to go into the NFL, having almost a 6-year career, being a 4-year starter at Howard, going to their Hall of Fame, all these things make me realize, wow, you can really cross anything off your list as long
Mm.
as you believe in yourself against all odds. Because that, at the end of the day, is what's about. You have to believe in yourself against all odds.
What was the biggest challenge you faced internally throughout this process? What was the thing that you had to overcome to make this happen?
I had to overcome not doubting myself or not, being my own worst enemy because it's very easy to be your own worst
Mm,
enemy in this process. And once you understand that if you don't stop being your own worst enemy, then you're going to end up putting yourself right out of the game and putting yourself on the sideline of life. And I didn't want to be there. So, but it was hard because, I was a young guy, had never been away from home, never paid any bills, things like that. So it was a lot for me trying to adjust and get that into better retrospect. But now it's really, I understand exactly, how it has to, how I had to put myself through everything to get where I'm at today.
if a 14-year-old kid walks up to you and says, hey, I want to play in the NFL one day, what's the one thing you would say you've got to X if you're going to do that?
You gotta be educated because if you're not a smart athlete, you won't be an athlete for long. I don't care how talented you are, how gifted you are as an athlete. If you don't have the skill sets to have education and be able to be smart enough to do it, you won't last in the NFL because they don't want dummies. They want smart athletes on the football field.
Marcus, if you could crossing something else off your list. It's completely different than playing in the NFL. What's like the next thing you want to accomplish or a goal that you have that you say, I'm going to cross this off?
I'm going to cross going to Greece.
Oh, and why Greece?
Well, why Greece? Greece actually is something that I've always wanted to do. I've always fell in love with, like, you know, Greek mythology and all that kind of stuff. So I'm a big believer in, you know, travel and experiences, and I want to go to Greece to see Macedonia and see all the different things like that. I mean, I'm a huge mythology, you know, Zeus, Athena, Apollo, all that stuff. So I want to go to Greece. That's one of my, that's what I want to cross off my list sometime here soon.
Good. That's awesome. I love that. Marques, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story. I know it's the NFL, playing in the NFL is not the end of your story, and we don't have time to go over that today, but how can people, if they're interested in following your story and hearing more about you, where would they go to find you?
They go to my website, www.marquesogden.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, Marques Ogden, Instagram at Marques Ogden, Twitter at Marques_Ogden, Facebook, Marques Ogden, TikTok at Marques Ogden 71. And they can also follow us on our new podcast, the Get Authentic with Marques show. We're ranked in the top 2% worldwide most listened to podcasts after only 6 weeks. And we have great interviews and great people that are on there. So yeah, they can check us out in any of those places. We love to connect with you.
Awesome. I highly recommend folks to check out your story. It's an amazing one. Marques, thank you so much for being here and taking this time out of your day. And I wish you luck in going to Greece soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on, Roger. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it, man.
As a reminder to our listeners, in this episode's show notes, you will find links to learn more about this week's guest and information on how you can cross this item off of your list. You can follow my adventures of crossing items off my bucket list on Instagram and Facebook. And as always, new episodes of this podcast are available to stream every Friday morning. We will meet you here next week. And until then, keep living out your list.